Oh, God, it's so hot today. I don't know how much longer I can last, but the reviews must go on, as one critic would say, who would later be hated on. Hello everybody, welcome back to another movie review vlog, and today I just got back from Ant-Man and Wasp, and it was okay. Not the greatest, but it was a huge step up from what it was from the previous movie. If you guys haven't checked out that previous review, feel free to check it out in the little dot right here in that little corner. Or is it this corner? I'm not really sure when it comes to YouTube stuff. But nonetheless, Ant-Man and Wasp did live up to the expectations and also delivered a lot more better stuff. I'm not saying it's the greatest, but it was still an improvement from its predecessor. So, as for the plot itself. In the aftermath of Captain America's Civil War, Scott Lang is pretty much under house arrest for being a superhero against the law and everything else, but at the same time, Hope and Hank Pym have returned into his life just so they can get in touch with his mind, just so they can try to receive Janet Van Dyne back from the microverse. And that's pretty much what the whole plot is. And along the way, they come across some very interesting plot twists as well as some villains. And I gotta say, now right off the bat, I just want to say that the duo of Ant-Man and Wasp worked pretty well together, with Evangeline Lilly and Paula Rudd doing a nice little combination. But I was quite surprised that they had Michelle Pfeiffer, of all people, to play the original Janet Van Dyne Wasp. And I have to say that I was actually quite surprised, and she has done quite well for herself in this movie. She was caring, she was serious, and also very smart. All the great qualities, just like the comic book character. We also get a little bit more of a backstory into Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas, which is actually very fascinating, seeing his personal obsession when it comes to his work. And this is sort of the thing like he did in the comics, where he was very serious about creating Ultron in order to save the world and everything else, but that pretty much blew in his face in the comic books. In this movie, he was pretty much obsessed with and sacrificing as much as he can in order to find his wife, and this was actually pretty good, the way he went through it and pretty much the toll he takes into getting there. And as for the other improvements in this movie, I really did enjoy a couple of the villains in here as well. Walter Goggins playing as Sonny Birch, who was actually pretty good as your Joe typical mobster, but him and his goons did pretty well, as well as Ghost, played by Hannah John Kamen. I think that's right. Anyways, she was actually pretty good as the villain. Even though they did a bit of a gender change from the comics to the movie, but it actually worked quite well. For you see, in the comic books, Ghost was pretty much just this mysterious Iron Man villain who pretty much stole stuff for money, and he was also a guy. But in this one, she's portrayed by a female. And that's actually not bad. I mean, she did pretty well with using the abilities, as well as her dilemma and also her motives as to why she's doing this stuff, and also attacking Ant-Man and Wasp as well. I don't want to give away too much, but if you guys happen to see it, it's actually quite motivating for this villain. It is also a nice change of pace to see at least an evil female in the Marvel Cinematic Universe roster, because as you already know by now, the Marvel Cinematic roster is pretty much a sausage fest at this point. So it's good to have a nice little change up. And one of the other things I also liked about this movie is that how they reiterate and also got really creative with the sizing and enlarging effects in this movie, and I really did enjoy that. They had Scott Lang pretty much having problems with the suit being extra giant, or extra small, or the size of a kid, and that stuff actually does quite well for the subplot. As well as some of the newer side characters in here, they were also fleshed out more in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A lot of them were mostly B and C-list characters, but if you guys are die-hard Avengers and Ant-Man fans, you would notice all the Easter eggs in here. And speaking of side characters, one of the negative things is, of course, Scott Lang's character friends returning, one of them being Michael Pena, but he was a little bit less annoying with this one, and more serious about his job, and I kind of liked that part. But we saw less of Michael Pena and his friends, so that's also a good thing. What I also like is also the utilization of the shrinking objects that both Hope and Hank Pym were using throughout this movie. They had large buildings, and they could shrink them down to a carrier case, or a whole collection of vehicles, miniaturized vehicles like Hot Wheels, that you can select different varieties from. So you can just hit the button and they pop up into a life-size vehicle. I did really enjoy that, as well as the chase scene near the end of the movie in San Francisco. Overall, I would have to say that this is actually quite entertaining. Few flaws, of course, but there's not really glaring for the most part. So Overall, like I said before, this is a huge step up for this movie, and I would have to give Ant-Man and Wasp a solid 3 out of 5 stars. And that pretty much concludes this week's movie review vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys have any comments about this movie, whether you liked it, disliked it, or agree or disagree with this movie, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you guys have any movie suggestions of your own, whether it be comic book related or any other type of movies, new or old, past and present, feel free to hit me up on Patreon as well for the $1 a month club, and I'll make sure to chat with you guys privately if you guys want to let me know what kind of movies you want me to review for a future vlog. It's only $1 a month to do one of these videos. That's all it costs. So, with that said, I will see you all next time.